I'm going to say something that probably contradicts myself as well as general recommendations about DSLR type video shooting. And that's that compact size doesn't matter, for me anyway, and for a lot of other people. I don't think size matters as much as they think it does. Now, that sounds, like I said, contradictory to other stuff that I've said, and because I do like the compact nature of DSLR type cameras. It's a great feature to have, a nice compact. You can shoot handheld, you can get down low, difficult angles and difficult places to get into. Compact size does matter in that context, but what I mean by this is people who talk about compact size like they talk about phones, right? This is a great analogy, I think, because I came up with it. Phones, right? Now, if you have a phone, here's my phone right here. This is a 5S. iPhone 5S. If I've got the 5S, is the difference between the 5S and the 6S and the 6S Plus and the Galaxy S7 and all the different phones out there, does the compact size of the phone actually matter? That's my first question. Does the compact size of a phone actually matter? There's people who say, yes, it absolutely does. But I think when we actually think about it, not really. Phones are all generally around the same size anyway, and some are bigger, some are thicker, some are a little bit heavier, some are a little bit lighter. But for the most part, they're all in that range where they fit in your pocket. As long as it fits in your pocket, it's doing its job. And if it doesn't fit in your pocket, then maybe it's too big. And if you can't find it in your pocket, maybe it's too small. But in general, phones, I would say the size doesn't really matter. Yeah, there's ones that have bigger screens. So if you want the biggest screen you can get on a phone, get the bigger phone. I understand that little difference, but on a more macro scale, when we're looking at big picture, the difference between my phone and my TV, now that's significant, right? The difference between my TV and a movie theater screen, that's significant. But the difference between a 55-inch TV and a 60-inch TV, maybe not so much. So that's my first thing. When we apply that to cameras, the difference between like a 500-gram camera and an 800-gram camera might not be a whole lot. Yes, you'll say that, hanging it around your neck, you feel the weight, it gets heavier. It's, it's really frustrating how heavy the camera is. I'm glad I have this light camera. But really, on the grand scale, we're not talking about like huge, a 10-pound camera versus a 50-pound camera. We're talking like a 10-pound camera versus a 12-pound camera. Do you really notice the difference? So that's my first point why I think compact cameras don't really matter. Now, the second thing I'd say is that for video, for high-end photography, but mostly let's talk about this first. Okay, so compact cameras, that term usually applies to cameras that you can actually fit in your pocket. So when you're talking about a compact camera, yeah, you want it to fit in your pocket, but any professional camera that you attach lenses to, by the fact that you're attaching a lens to it, it probably doesn't fit in your pocket anymore unless you have a very thin, slim camera and a pancake lens. But that doesn't cover every situation you're going to be in. You're probably going to shoot with 12 to 35 or 16 to 35 or 70 to 200 or a 50 to 100. These zoom lenses, you're shooting with an 85, you're shooting with a 50. Almost every lens, by the very nature of how lenses work, makes it not pocketable. So unless we're talking about a camera that, the lens retracts in to the body and you can put it in your pocket, we're not talking about those. Professional cameras, interchangeable lens cameras, there you go. Where you put a lens on it, right there, it's not pocketable, so that factor doesn't matter to me anymore. You can make the camera as small as you want, but I have to put a lens on it, so it's not going to fit in my pocket. So now I'm not worried about pocketability. I'm worried about other things like ergonomics and ease of use. And the smaller you make the camera, normally the harder it is to use and operate. I don't know if you felt the difference between a DSLR, like proper 5D Mark III, and the Sony cameras, like the A7S. Holding a 5D Mark III feels a lot nicer than holding an A7S. Yes, that's my opinion. Try it out for yourself. You tell me what you think. I'm sure some people will say they love shooting with the A7S. But you're putting lenses on both of them, and they're both full-frame cameras. So it's the same lenses in either case. The optics, that's just how it works. So even if the camera is a little bit smaller, a little bit more lightweight, you're using the exact same lens. And that's what's adding most of the space anyway. So that's point number 2, that the fact that you're putting these lenses on there, the compact size of the camera doesn't necessarily matter all that much. Yes, it matters a little bit, but not a lot. And the final thing I'll talk about is for video, for professional video or independent video, whatever you want, filmmaking in general. Oftentimes, if you're shooting on a DSLR for video, you're going to rig that camera out. You're going to put rails on it. You're going to put a matte box on it. You're going to put extra batteries on it. You're going to put microphones on it. You're going to put audio recorders on it. You're going to do all these things to build that camera out into, to have all the bells and whistles that you want. Maybe it's an external display, external recorder, all of these different things that can go onto that camera. And at that point, once you have your audio recorder, your matte box, your screen, your extra battery pack, doesn't matter if the camera is 500 grams or 800 grams, or if it's a little bit smaller or a little bit bigger. At that point, it's negligible because the rail kit, the matte box, all those other things are their size. And so the size of the camera, yeah, it's maybe a little bit nicer, that's a little bit more lightweight, or maybe you prefer it a little bit heavier, so maybe that's the benefit you see. But it really doesn't matter at that point. The difference is negligible. And that's what I try and say and make clear when I talk about the Sony cameras specifically, and how like Sony with the A7 series, they're trying to make the smallest, most compact full frame camera that they can. And that's why I say it's kind of pointless. There's not really any value because the difference isn't substantial enough. You're putting lenses on it anyway that are full frame lenses. They're going to be big and bulky anyway. And if you're using that camera for video, you're going to likely kit it out. Now, if you pull the camera out of, let's say, your bag, it's got a pancake lens on there, and that's the way you shoot, okay, maybe you have a point. But when you compare that to like a GH4 or a 5D or an NX1 or any other DSLR style camera out there, we're talking about very small differences. And there will be people who say that, yeah, but when you're traveling, you want the lightest, most portable camera that you can get. Absolutely. I agree with that. When I was traveling in Switzerland, I just brought my GH4 with the kit lens. Like that was it. I brought a few extra batteries and some SD cards, but I didn't bring all my lenses. I didn't bring my rail kit, my matte box or anything. And I could still shoot 4K video, but it wasn't kitted out the way I normally shoot. So I get that. I get that you want to travel light. But please, I think you should be willing to say at the same time that the compact size, like if the compact nature of the camera is hurting things, like it's hurting things with the Sony cameras, that the battery life isn't all that great because they have to use these tiny little batteries that don't last that long. And the bodies overheat because you're cramming all the stuff into a tight little package and it's overheating. Maybe that's the reason, maybe it's not. But there's definitely problems there. The ergonomics, like holding the camera, isn't that comfortable. Like, yes, you've made it smaller. It's a little bit easier to fly on a drone, maybe, because that is a situation where weight and size really does matter. But the other time, like, there's not, from my perspective, that compacting, yes, it's a nice feature, yes, it's great, but that is not my priority. That's low on the priority list. When I'm looking at all the things a camera can do, the size and the weight of it is maybe the least interesting to me. Yes, it matters, but it doesn't matter that much. And I think that's like when I talk about, the GH4 or the GH series getting a bigger sensor. People say, it would be bigger bodies, bigger lenses, and that would just ruin the whole purpose of Micro Four Thirds, is to make smaller cameras. But like, we're not talking about that much bigger or that much heavier. Maybe in some people's minds we are, but for the three reasons I described, for me, it doesn't matter to me. Compact, size and weight, it doesn't really matter to me.